I'm just going to start off with somebody who's really the right person to be talking to us about all that's happened in India. The chairman of the State Bank of India, which is of course the public sector bank, I think by far the most dominant bank in India. So sir, it's a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us on a day like this today. Just help us understand, if you will, what exactly is it that the government has done? They'd already announced that they're going to start recapitalizing the banks, 2 lakh crores, that figure was mentioned, and 1 lakh 35 on the bonds. Today they seem to have put in place the rules by which the funding will happen.
Yes, definitely. So it was a program which was announced in October 2007, and now the implementation has started. The breakup of 2.11 lakh crore was 1 lakh 35,000 crore by way of recapitalization bonds, 18,000 crore by way of budget, and rest the banks are supposed to raise from the market or the public. Right. So today's announcement is about this recapitalization, 80,000 crore, and how it will be distributed. And if we look at the details, there have been 2 categories of banks, PCA and non-PCA. So PCA banks largely takes care of their international capital adequacy requirements, and non-PCA banks like State Bank of India or Punjab National Bank or many other banks in that list, this capital will largely be used for the growth. So that is the division. It's a very fine balancing act.
So one of the ways to try and understand it, I mean, trying to understand this from a layman's point of view, right? So essentially, would it be fair to say that what they have said is that to get the capitalization, it's not that it's to get over moral hazard and other questions, it's only banks, if they are being well managed, if they're reforming, if they're taking all the right steps, those are the banks that will get the funding. And if they don't do that, they will not get funding.
No, it's not like, no. The way to look at it is that this is the first dose, right? 80,000 crore. So this is the first infusion, which, as I said, that it takes care of the banks which were in PCA. So their capital requirements have to be met. So that has been done. Going forward, whatever is remaining for the next year, so probably that will come based on the performance. And what will be the performance parameters, they have been outlined in the presentation made by the Secretary DFS, where the theme, underlying theme has been responsive and responsible banking. And what is responsible and responsible banking, that has been also detailed in that presentation.
So PCA banks are getting their funding, that's already happened, and now going forward, banks that are performing responsible banking, they are the ones who will continue to get funding.
So first tranche, whatever has been announced, we will get before 31st March. It is a question of issuing the recapitalization bond. What I am saying is that whatever is remaining, which will come in the next year, that would largely be on the basis of how do you perform against the performance parameters which have been laid down by the Secretary in his presentation.
So I just wanted to understand what that specifically means. Now, you know, there are some banks, there are various nature of public sector banks. Some are better functioning, some are less well functioning. There's been talk, of course, about merging a lot of them in with State Bank of India as one possible solution. Just have one big bank, which is you, let everyone be merged into you. Is that at all the solution, or what is the advice you would be giving to other banks as well as to your colleagues in the State Bank of India?
No, again, I'm referring to the presentation by Secretary, where bank should focus. So that has been very clearly spelled out. One is about the quality of service and responsiveness to the common citizens of the country who deal with the public sector banks. Second is the emphasis on the MSME, which has huge employment generation potential, and it makes, according to me, eminent business sense for the banks also to focus on that sector. And there are many new enablers which are today available in the form of new technology, cash flow, which can be easily captured. So banks have to put in a business model where they can respond to requirement from MSME very quickly.
So servicing the public is one of the aspects. Now, the other big issue, of course, in public sector banks has been the non-performing assets and the loans, and lots of questions about the circumstances in which those loans were given. Many of them are bad loans and can't come back. That debt burden is also something which is weighing very heavily on private sector, in general in the private sector, and how do you get investment going until you can resolve that bank issue?
No, that resolution process is going on, and a very large number of cases have now been referred under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, where the actively all banks, resolutional, professional, entire machinery is working towards resolving these large assets which constitute a large chunk of NPAs. Other than that, also there has been very intensive effort by the banks to recover. So that effort will continue. NPA management and the asset quality management, and going forward putting in a very sound and robust credit risk management infrastructure, that is also part of the announcement. So one is that whatever has happened, you resolve that and move forward. Second is ensure that going forward don't commit the same mistakes, and steps toward ensuring greater financial discipline amongst the lenders and borrowers both.
All right. So at the end of the day, would you say, people were concerned about the solvency of public sector banks? They were saying many of them are going to go bust. Is that a concern that we should now put behind us?
Definitely. I mean, it goes without saying, and the statement which came out so categorically, so there should not leave any doubt about it. Okay. And public sector banks are playing a very critical role. There is a problem on NPA front, but there are many other dimensions of the banking which should also be kept into consideration. And on financial and social inclusion initiatives particularly, the role of the public sector banks must be lauded and must be recognized.
Well, as I said, you as State Bank of India are the largest by far bank in India. So, if you're saying that the health is good, that's a great statement to hear. Thank you so much for joining us, and such a pleasure. Yeah.